Would you like to introduce yourself to the folks who are watching?
Sure. My name is Denise Griebler, and I'm a potter, and I'm also a whole bunch of other things, and have been a whole bunch of other things in my life, including that I'm an ordained UCC United Church of Christ pastor, and I served local churches for a little over 30 years, and I just retired from that, and I worked with clay for a whole bunch of that time, and I'm looking forward to taking a deeper dive into clay in these years ahead. So that's
Fabulous.
yeah. I live in Detroit, Michigan, and I'm actually from Chicago, so I'm a Great Lakes person, and so living in Detroit, and we're actually my husband and I are living half the year at Kirkridge. So we're there kind of in 3-month chunks at a time. And we're going between Kirkridge and Detroit, where we're really involved in a lot of local justice initiatives. And then in Kirkridge, we blend into the life there and support the community there. Big retreats, things like that.
Yeah, we're so happy that you're there and able to do that. I'd love to just hear more about your own experience working with clay and becoming a potter. How did you get started, and how has that impacted your life? How is your life with clay?
Yeah. Well, there's a long story and the short story, and I'm tempted to just jump to tell the short story, but I think maybe I'm going to tell the abbreviated long story version, if that makes sense. And so it started way back when I was a kid, when I used to just love to play in the mud that would gather between the two houses, between the house that we lived in and the house next door, growing up in Chicago. And it was this in between little space that there was just mud and stuff that grew there, and it was kind of dark, and we would go and play there. And I just loved playing in the mud. So that's probably how it all began. And then I spent a lot of time as a child and then as a teen and all through my life, living in the city, but spending also a lot of time in the woods. And I love being in the woods, and I love being, I love earth. I think, how people talk about their sort of like their spirits being akin to different elements, and mine is really akin to earth. And I've known that all my life. And so there's something about having my hands in mud that just is like, there's joy in it. And when I think about that space between the houses where the mud would gather and where we could play in it, there's something like life coming out of that mud. So that's probably the beginning. And then when I was in my early 20s, I remembered that, and I started thinking, gosh, maybe I'd like to learn how to really learn how to throw pots, and really maybe I could become a potter. I don't know. So I took this class that I thought was a class, but turned out was an open studio for people who were already potters. And we all sat down at our wheels, and everybody was like making things like magic. And I just had this mud that just spun around and around and wobbled and wobbled. And I did that for 3 weeks, and then I just dropped out, and I thought, well, I guess I'm not meant to be a potter. And I felt pretty bad about that, but there was just something that just stayed with me. I just like putting my hands in dirt and mud. So then about 20 years later, I was serving a church that was really hard. and full of people who I loved and who loved me, and yet it was hard. And seemed like bringing the gospel just, it was like one, I don't even want to say conflict, but just like one, like hitting your head against a wall, like every single time, you know, it's like just, it was going nowhere. Now with everybody, there are always people along the edges where it's sort of like the seeds sort of fell along the edges of those walls, but the walls were big and thick and hard, and they were breaking me. And I saw a pottery shop, and I noticed that the guy that ran it was offering classes, and so I stopped in, and there was $250 for a class for 8 weeks, and we didn't have money like that, and so we also had this agreement. My husband and I had an agreement that these are old days, right? We would never spend $100 without talking to each other. So we could spend 99. We do that, but $100, that was the mark where we talked with each other about that. This was $250. I went home and I said, you know what? I think I need to do this. I think it would. I think it might save my soul right now, and I don't understand why or how, but I just think I have to try this. And he said, we don't have that kind of money. And he said, besides that, what if it does? And you get to the end of that 8 weeks, we certainly don't have another $250. So don't even go there. We just can't even go there. And oh my gosh, broke my heart.
Yeah.
But he was right, sort of. But then that week I had a funeral. And in the card, there was the family gave me $250 in cash. No one had ever given me that much money for celebrating a funeral before. And $250 in cash. And I went right to that pottery shop and I signed up for the class.
Oh, I love it.
Talking to my husband about that. And I came home and I confessed what I'd done. And he was really mad. We did not argue very much in our 23 years of being married together. But he was really mad that I had done that. And he said, well, we'll just see how that goes. But you know what? There will not be a second class. There can't be. There's no money. So I just gave myself to it during those 8 weeks. And on the third week, I came home and he said, we'll find a way.
Oh, wow.
We're going to have to find a way.
So he saw that this was really good.
It is saving your soul. And I really came alive by having that time. And so there was just something about, with a little bit of instruction and a little bit of somebody else kind of holding me in the exploration with clay. Wow, it just really happened. Really beautiful. Wow. So it was a little passive. Well, I don't know. It just was what it was. The class met on Tuesday mornings. I would always take Monday as my day off, and Tuesday was my first day back at work, but I would spend it from 9 until 1 at the pottery studio. And it made the people of my church so mad that that's how I was starting my work week. And that I was not going to do it just for 8 weeks, but I just intended to continue to do this.
Yeah.
And they were really mad at me about that. And I was able to look them in the eye and say, you know what? It really doesn't matter if you understand. I have to do this.
Good for you. Wow.
And so clay gave me the freedom to say, it really doesn't matter if another person understands what it is that makes my soul come alive.
Yeah.
I have to trust that.
Yes.
And live into it and trust that that's what I have to offer others, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if I don't do that, don't come alive in myself. So the clay really has been this thing that has helped me come alive in hard times, and then has carried me ever since then. So that was way back That was back in the late 90s
Mm.
when I first put my hands in clay in that way.
Wow.
And I've never taken them out.
I love that. I'm so glad you told the full story,
Yeah.
because I feel like there are these moments when we choose ourselves, or we listen to the spirit choosing us, and it's so important, even when the people close are saying no, or this is impossible. And I love that you were given this gift that made it clear and possible.
And there's something that about it that the gift came from death. I mean,
Yeah.
it came from celebrating the life of somebody who I had loved who died.
Wow.
And there's something about life coming from death that is
Yes.
so powerful. And so we certainly can connect that to Christian faith.
Yeah.
But I think just to how life is,
Mm-hmm.
if we're willing to meet life, if we're willing to
Yeah.
give ourselves to life, it often comes like something dies first.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I even think about like there's so many lessons that I've learned from clay.
Mm.
I just think about like what clay is made of, right? So clay is it's earth, it's rock. First of all, it's rock. It's grounded to earth. So you think of it starting from rock, right? And then ground to earth, and that earth in those little pieces falls into the water, right? It ends up in a stream. It's carried down into a stream, and it finds its place in sort of like a little corner, like a place where the water goes round and carves out a little place over the years, and carves out and down and lower and deeper, and things get caught in that space. So it's that ground up earth that's in the water that's getting pressed down, and what's getting mixed in there is all kinds of dead stuff.
Wow.
Right. So whether it be leaves or trees or animals that have died, all of this organic matter is also pressed into this spot where the water goes around, and pressing down on all of these things together, and that's what creates the clay.
Wow.
And then we scoop it out and we make things and shape it, and then put it in the kiln, into the fire, offer it to the fire, and it becomes hard again, like earth, but only after having been shaped. And it's so clay, it has its limits, but it's so like all living things, right? It has its limits, but it's so plastic. And different kinds of clay have different amounts of plasticity, but what causes the plasticity in clay is all of the dead stuff. All of the organic matter that's in it. That's what allows it to stretch. Just imagine if it was just rock and water.
No.
It wouldn't hold together.
Right.
It couldn't be shaped, formed. So there's something in clay that, like, you have to be able to hold death in your hands to be able to work with clay. Like, there's something about holding it and respecting it and trusting that something new can be shaped from it, but also like it shapes us.
Yeah.
Right? At the same time, there's a wonderful, really wonderful potter, sculptor. His name was MC Richards, and she's famous. One of the things she was famous for saying is, "It's not pots we're making; it's ourselves."
Oh.
And there is something in that. And so when I think about what we're going to do in this retreat at Kirkridge, it's about shaping the clay, letting the clay be shaped by how we touch it and form it, but also how it pushes back and where it wants to go. And it's like we bring ourselves to the clay, and we can form things that maybe we intend to form. Maybe things happen that are just, happen.
Yeah.
But also we're shaped in the shaping of it. So it's this kind of dialogue that happens between one body, our bodies, and the clay body.
Yeah.
These bodies that come together.
had never thought about where clay comes from and how the process of creating things from clay involves all of the elements working together.
Oh, it really does.
Yeah. And
I mean, it's earth, it's fire, it's air, right? You have to, like, as you're working with the clay, when you're actually working with a piece that's going to be fired, that you're working with over time, you wait till it dries to a certain hardness so that you can work with it. So you want to work with it when it's very pliable, if you're working with it on the wheel or the first shaping. But then if you're going to make changes to it, you have to wait until the air has its way with it for a little while. And
oh my gosh.
it has to get a little bit harder, like leather hard. And then you can still make changes to the clay. It's still pliable, but it's much more firm. And then it holds its shape. Like you might change one part, but the rest of it is able to hold its shape still.
Yeah.
So it's the same process. Like if you're working with a piece on the wheel, when you first form it, and then it dries for a while, and then you shape it, you flip it over, and you trim. So this is a piece that's in the process of drying right now. It's like a Japanese tea bowl kind of shape. So there's I don't know how to make it show here, but the bottom's not done. So there will be a lot of clay that will be taken off here. And so I'll flip it over onto the wheel, and then I'll take a tool and I'll take off a lot of this and a lot of the bottom of this, and it'll be a much different shape when I'm done with it from the bottom. So, but it has to be at the right amount of dryness to be able to do that. This part has to be able to hold its shape when I do that. So, the bottoms of a piece, you end up trimming a foot, and this is obviously a much bigger piece, but where you would, so there's a lot in clay. There's a lot about forming and shaping a piece, but then there's so much, like really making a piece beautiful has just as much to do with what you take away, which I think is a lot. There's a lot in life that's like that, right? In our own life. So like, what is it that you need to trim away from your own life so that the purpose of a piece that, for me, well, I mean, this is kind of classic understanding of a functional piece of pottery, is that you want the inside to reflect the outside. Like, and I don't know how it shows up here. So this, and here's, I don't know how to show it so that it does, but like, you want the walls all the way up to be the same thickness. And you just want the inside and the outside to reflect one another. Well, isn't life like that, right? Isn't that what we want for our own lives?
Yes.
For the outside to look like the inside and the inside to look like the outside. I mean, that's what integrity is, right?
Yes.
So, and so in the workshop at Kirkridge, I feel like, I don't know, we're kind of bouncing around here, but
it's great.
At Kirkridge, we're at the workshop that we do in October, it's not a long enough time to make finished pieces, because it's not enough time for the air to have its way with the clay to dry it out and to be able to then do more things. And firing would take, firing takes overnight, and then you gotta blaze and you fire again. And there's not enough time in 2.5 days to do all of that. So we're not going to be focusing on making beautiful finished pieces. This is really a workshop for people who really like to play in mud and who somehow trust that getting their hands in mud and shaping it and the feel of it and the way it looks when it's being opened, the way it feels, the way it's being shaped, there's something to be learned about one's own life and one's own journey, both the past and the future. I don't know how to say it. I don't know how to explain it exactly. I know what happens when I do it and when we do it together.
Yeah. There's a shaping. It's people who want to be shaped by the clay. during
Yeah.
the time that they're there.
But
Yeah.
also, like if you're somebody who trusts that life is shaping you,
Mhm.
and that you want to think about how that's happening, and maybe there's a physical way that you want to play with that, like play with it, ponder it, pray with it. Like I think about all of those words matter. Like I don't know, there's just something about like what happens, how easy it is. So like I'm just sitting here right now and I can make in my hand, I can just turn and make a little tiny bowl here. Like I could sit with this for an hour and I would be totally blissed out and happy. And it's amazing to do this over a long time. But here I am just in seconds doing this. But I don't know, it can be like, what happens when I look at a bowl like this and say, what is it in my life? Like, what's being put in my bowl right now? What do I wish is in, what do I wish was in my bowl? What's in my bowl? What's in my bowl that I would like to take out of my bowl and leave somewhere else? I don't know, there's just so many ways, so many that it's possible to think about your life with play in your hands.
Yeah.
So that's, I guess there are exercises and things that we can do that will help us both open the clay and open our souls as much as we want to and feel comfortable with. And there'll be time for journaling about that, because I think there's something about like having the clay in your hands and experiencing that, but then also having time to reflect on that. So we're going to hope for no rain, because it's the most beautiful weekend of the whole year at Kirkridge. The colors are at their height. It's amazing. We'll be on the top of the mountain, and it'll be an amazing place if it's to be outside, if it's not raining. And well, you know, it's you never know how the weather's going to be. If it's raining, it's an interesting, beautiful place to be able to sit and look out amazing, gorgeous windows looking out over the rain, over the mountains. And it'll be good. No matter which way it rolls, you can't count on weather, right? So there's, I don't know, you should ask me a question. I'm not sure what else to say.
That is beautiful and amazing. And I can't wait. I'm planning on being there. I guess there's a question around, well, what are you looking forward to about the retreat? You've said a little bit of that, I think, but like, what are your hopes for the people who come, for yourself, for Kirkridge, all of that?
I hope that for everybody who comes, there's some time when they really get drawn into the clay and just are present to it and to themselves, and that that something emerges that's in the overused word awesome. I mean, there's some awe, either at their own life or the life in the world right now, and how that's unfolding, how it's calling to them. Yeah. So I hope that there are some moments like that for everybody. I hope that it's really relaxing. If there's like, for me, I can't think of anything more relaxing than to have my hands in it and just play. It's not, nobody has to be an artist. Nobody has to be a potter. You just can come and you get to experience what you experience, and you'll make what you make. And I'm hoping, one of the things I'd really like to do is I'd like for each of us to make something that we would offer to the forest and offer to the mountain. And because it's earth, right? I mean, there's nothing, we can make something, a little gift that we can offer back. So, so that will be one of the things that we'll do. there'll be things will dry enough that people can take their pieces with them. And when, like, I have a piece that I made when I was at a workshop probably 20 years ago that I still have. It's just a little a face that I made of a person crying out. And it's just sitting on one of my shelves in my bedroom. I never fired it, but I've had it for 20 years. I'll bring it along. People can see what happens if you don't do anything to the clay. And I hope that we enjoy each other's company, and I hope there's good solitude time. And so all that.
Beautiful. I mean, I can't wait. I wish it were tomorrow. It sounds so just nourishing.
Yeah. I really hope that it is. I think it will be.
Yeah.
I think so too. Yeah. Well, good.
Yeah.
Look at this little bowl I made. I love this little bowl.
It's so cute.
So this is the kind of thing that I'll texture. I'll press like shells into it, and I'll make some texture, and I'll glaze this, and I'll use it for something. I don't know what.
Yeah.
It might be the kind of thing I'll put some sage in to burn, or I'll do, there's these kinds of things. I guess what I want to, the other thing is I can make lovely functional pottery, and it's nice. But there's something about the things that I just make with a little ball of clay that I can hold in my hand that are my favorite things.
Yes.
And do you want me to show you some?
Yes, please.
All right. So these are great. Oh, I have to move something before I hurt it. So this is, I don't even know what this means. Somehow this is Madonna and Child to me. I don't understand why, but it is.
I can see that.
I made this, oops, it's got this little ball that's in there. I don't know. I think that's Jesus, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
And this is for sure Mary for me. And something, I don't know. I just loved making this piece. I was at Christ in the Desert Monastery when I made it. And I just brought a little bag of porcelain clay with me. And that's where I made this at a time. I went to Christ in the Desert Monastery hoping to be able to sleep again. My husband had died a few months before that, and I couldn't sleep. I had been caring for him, and he had brain cancer, and I spent a year and a half caring for him. And maybe the whole time that he was ill, like I would sleep maybe 3 or 4 hours a night, something like that, but not enough to really dream. And there was always something that interrupted my sleep. And then after he died, I couldn't sleep. I just couldn't find my sleep again after that. So I went to Christ in the Desert, hoping to be able to sleep and to dream and to just sit with clay in my hands.
Yeah.
And so this was the first piece that I made there.
Wow.
And it, there's nothing, anyone could have made this. This is not anything fancy, but anyway, I love this piece.
It's wonderful. Thank you for telling the story too.
Yeah, this is just a sweet little body piece. It was at a class where there was a model, and she was lying on her back like that. And I made this in, I think it might have been 5 minutes, maybe less. And we just like quick squished up clay the way we saw it. Anyway, I love her.
Yes.
And this is another little teeny tiny piece. I don't know if you see the little person in there.
Yes.
So this is sweet. It was a hard day. and this changed everything.
I love it. I love it.
And this is my kiln goddess. So she sits over my kiln. That's a tradition among potters, is that you make a piece by hand that sits over your kiln. And this is
Wow.
my, you know, again, it was like just a little, I love her.
Yes.
Isn't she great?
She's fantastic.
Yeah. So all of these things are like just things that I just sat pretty, you know, maybe this is an hour of sitting with the clay. But these are the kinds of things, like, people will make amazing things that will surprise them. And maybe there'll be animal qualities to it. Maybe there'll be human qualities. Maybe there'll be, I don't know, spaces that are open or cracked that mean something.
Yeah.
And that will emerge, and it really will be, we'll get to make some fun things, but we'll also, something in us will also make ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much depth in how you talk about this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's not something that you talk about a lot, you know, mostly you just do it.
Right.
So, I wanted to read a poem.
Oh, excellent.
Can I do that?
Yes,
I
please.
have this poem that, it's a poem by Kabir, who probably most folks know was a 15th century Indian mystic. And it's a poem that it's called Inside This Clay Jug. Inside this clay jug, there are canyons and pine mountains, and the maker of canyons and pine mountains. All 7 oceans are inside, and hundreds of millions of stars. The acid that tests gold is here, and the one who judges jewels, and the music that comes from strings that no one touches, and the source of all water. If you want the truth, I will tell you the truth. Friend, listen. The God whom I love is inside.
Oh. Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
It's been a great conversation. Thanks so much.
you're welcome. Yeah, thank you, Nichola. I'm looking forward to it.
I really am too.
Retreat. Yeah, I'm glad you're going to come too.
Yeah, I wouldn't miss it. Great.